depending on what way you're going, you'll be cutting the hay like you go.
Here in the Winsgrove, this is actually, would you believe it, called the Round O. And the reason it's called the Round O was years and years ago, people used to train ponies and horses. And they'd have a stake here in the middle, and they came from all around to break in horses. And they used to go around in a circle. Hence it's called the Round O. All the village people used to meet here. Like you had Carramore, you had Boho, you had Wilsgrove, you had Infield, Caron, all them little villages. And people go to school to the meeting place. So I remember as a small child, just be stories told here, and men used to meet. And of course, it might be all the truth. But I decided, a couple of years ago, a good friend of mine, Jerry Byrne, he's a great for timber carpenter, and we got these men made. And this man here was Tim Kinney, a very well-known cattle dealer over the road here, and he knew everything. Good Fianna Fáil man too, a bit like Pat Garvey. And Jimmy Keegan as well, and Tommy alluded to him there a while ago, a pure gentleman and a great craftsman. And more than a story, more than myself, would you believe it, they were all bachelors. So I broke the mould here in Winsgrove, I got married. Well, better for worse. But anyway.
What about the dog?
The dog, is Shep the dog. You can see the dog here. Every farmer had a dog. Man's best friend is his dog, and everybody should know that. But anyway, there was all the stories told here on Nod's song. So just to keep up to the tradition, another Cunyon, Mary, is going to do a Shanos dance. Now this Shanos dance is well over 100 years old.
My feet may wander 1,000 places, but my heart will lead me back home to my dining hall.
Many Irish villages formed the heart of Irish rural communities, which were essential for goods and services. Pat Garvey gives a heritage tour of the village, and there's a visit to the blacksmith's workshop and traditional Irish pub.
When I came here first, none of these buildings, none of these houses existed. The only thing that existed was the castle, was there the two-storey house on your right-hand side up near the castle, Garvey's, the forge.
I believe in it here. This is one of his Thomases that he made.
Yeah.
That was one of his. Dad made that now.
You're just reading.
Yeah, that's been perfectly made. You won't get them like that today.
No.
No.
Oh, that's the lucky one, yeah? Oh, yeah.
Over there was 40 to 50 people working, horses and carts and old crushers and all that stuff was all over there. That's all we had along here. All along here was a quarry. And this was our school as we went to school here. And down along then, as we go down along, there was nothing here, only flaggers. £58. That was the cost of that house, that bungalow that you see there. And that was built in about 1928 or maybe before that. But that was the price of it. 58. It was Callahan's that built that house there, Tom Callahan. These walls here on this side, they were only just put up. If you stood on them, they fell down, and they were just very low walls. But all that was done inside the last 40 years. We had FOSS scheme here, and we done all them walls. We have about 4 miles of walls in the village, and footpaths and lights to go along with it, which is great for the village. That was a grotto that was built in 1954. by the Pioneer Association. This is the river I've been telling you about here, and that is the dividing line between Ballintubber and Ballyfinnegan. That's the dividing line. The village again is 3 in 1. You have Ballyfinnegan, Ballintubber and Timana. That's the 3 villages in one, but it's all known as Ballintubber. Across here, the river turns and it goes underneath here. And there was an old stone wall just right here, all the way along. The stone wall was all the way, and this was what we call the priest's field. That belonged to the priests. And they, back 40, well, it's more than 40, it's 52 or 53 years ago, the parish priest at the time decided that he'd give this to the parish for a park and a playground. And back in the people that was over the village at the time was Michael Holland and Martin Morgan. And to pay tribute to Michael Holland and Martin Morgan, we took this park here and we called it Holland Park, and above at the castle we called that Morgans. That's Martin Morgan's. There's another little plaque there to Martin Morgan in thanks for starting off this lovely village that we have today. That building there, you can just see the gable of it sticking out there where the ivy is. That was a thatched cottage. And that thatched cottage belonged to the man that I showed you, the cottage that was up there that was built for £58. That's where they lived before that. And there was 12 in family. There were the Egan's. And how they lived in either of them houses is beyond me. When you figure the size of a house today for 2 people and maybe 2 children and family, and to see when 10 and 12 could live in houses like that, it's unreal. Here, that was the old post office, and next to it, Dan McGowan's. He was a reporter for the Roscommon Herald. Dan was a character in himself. He was very witty, and of course it was a great place to go in and play cards with Dan, and he was great crack. And of course next was the courthouse next to it, the grey building.
This was the old courthouse. Now the roof is gone because the storm blew the roof off at one time, and we might put the roof on again. I have come across old papers there where lots of people were fined here for maybe non-attendance at school, and lights on bikes and ass carts and donkey carts, and it was known as, I think, as a petty court sessions that were here. It was sort of smaller. But back in 1907, those 4 women from Castlerea up the road here, they were tried here in this courthouse, and they were sent to prison. They assaulted the landlord up the road there, up the Castlerea road. And these are the 4 women here. They were sent to Castlerea prison from here, from this courthouse. Now, the British, there was thousands of people here that day, and with the British forces and all the rest of it, but thousands of Irish people were here on the street. They were expecting the women to be sent to Ballymoe station and railed to Castlerea, but the British pulled a smart one on them that day. They sent them off this way, so they railed them from Castlerea. So the big crowd were here, so they didn't get a chance of jeering them or do whatever, heshing or roaring or whatever they do. But when they did come back from Castlerea, they did come back to Ballymoe railway station, because there was no problem. There was a huge, there was thousands and thousands of people here on the day they came back.
And then of course Colum Daly's, that was the thing. And then there was no garage there when Daly started. First they built the garage and they hired a man, John Murray was his name, fixing bicycles and things like that. Of course bicycles was a big thing at the time, you know. And then the hall came, the same as the hall above. They were both done in 1938, I think, or 34, I don't know which them dance halls were built in Ballintubber.
Here we are in Kinney's old public house. This premises traded in the 1900s, and it ceased to trade in 1964 as the Kinney family relocated this public house to what was known as the Orchard, which actually was behind the original Kinney's convenience store, where we go today and have our beers. Back them times, for some strange reason, ladies didn't come into the public house part of the bar. They would go into what's known as the snook area. That was serviced by, if you follow me in this direction, right over here. This was known as the hatch. And the ladies would be in the snug area and they would call for their drink by ringing a bell, which would alarm the barman to come forward, open the hatch, take the order from the lady. When he'd walk back to the bar and fill the drinks, he'd come over and leave them there. The lady would leave her money right there and the exchange would take place. So we never got an opportunity to meet that particular person because they were always in the snug area. Afterwards, it would be closed off like that. And when there was another drink required, the bell would ring again. I believe them times you could buy a drink, perhaps a pint of Guinness, for as little as 3 to 4 pence.
The local shop was often the focal point of the village and operated very differently from the convenience stores and self-service checkouts that are commonplace today. Colm Daly from the Village Shop Museum demonstrates the shopping experience of the past.
This shop here was way bigger, it went way back there further, like, you know, and the counters went all the way around about. No, I was born and reared here, this shop, and 3 sisters of mine, the first 4 of us anyway. So I was reared until I was 12 or 14 and in the shop business. So I you know, it's something that never leaves your mind. So I remember all about the old time shopping and all the weighing and all the stuff that came loose and teachers and the sugar, everything had to be weighed on the scale, like, you know, and packed into paper bags and whatever. And the weights on the scales were checked once a year. They were checked by the weights and measures men and they were stamped because, you know, a weight could lose weight by falling or being knocked about and all of that. So there was a check kept on everything, like, you know, and some of the things that weren't in paper bags, they would be wrapped in brown paper. And the shopkeepers were gifted at wrapping things. They could make up a package there and tie it with the twine and break the twine with their fingers. My dad was very good at that. But I've an older sister now and she was able to do that too. You know, make the package and break the twine and away you go. People used a lot of paraffin at that time because we had no electricity and whatever. Oil was used like for the lamps and for this, that and the other. A lot of the shopping in Ireland was affected by the war here. The war started in 39 and finished in 45. I have to say too that I wasn't around now in 45. But anyway, the books went on for ages, and even in England the petrol was rationed into the 50s. And there's a ration book, belonged to an Irish one here. Each family got a ration book, and that went on to 50. That was 52. But I just want to tell a story about the ration books were left here in the shop. And people, the customers would leave the ration books here, other than carrying them home, up and down or whatever. And we had a load of ration books left here under the counter in a cardboard box. And they had a dog here. And then the dog, nice and kindly, go into the box under the counter and have pups in it. But these were gold dust now, these were horrible. So my mother and a few people had to redeem the ration books from under the dog and get them out and clean them and hang them up on the line. And she often told that story, like, you know. So that was the ration books. Every family was, they got allocated so many coupons. Was it every week, Pat, or something, for their tea and sugar and whatever was rationed. Yeah. So that's that. There's a thing I got off a guy, people that would be spraying the spuds, you know, that sold the bluestone. You'd put 8 pound of bluestone and 10 pound of washing soda into a barrel, a 40-gallon barrel of water, and they'd be left soaking overnight. And that's what they sprayed the spuds with. The peculiar thing about it was that my dad had served his time in a drapery shop in Castlerea, and he was able to measure people here. There was suitlins, that was the drapery side over that side, and there was suitlins here in the whole works along with it. And he was able to measure people for suits. I have books in there somewhere where they were measured. And the measurements would be sent off to Dublin. The suits would come back in the post. So he must know his job fairly well. When he was able to, that had to be fairly right when they came back, because so I don't remember now, but I have it in the books and whatever. Now, everything you could think of was sold here. And I know a guy he's actually Stephen Tracy. He was the manager of the Rhythm Stairs, and he came here and he bought handballs. You see a few of them there. So the big up playing in the ball alley up there. So they knew where to come. They came here and they were able to buy a handball. So Stephen bought handballs here, and he actually bought them off my granduncle, Jim Thompson. My dad was in co with his uncle, Jim Thompson. This bicycle was known as a New Hudson bicycle, and it was £6 2 and 6, £6 17 and 6. Now she put a carrier on her bike, it was 2 shillings, and she traded in the old bike, it was 17 shillings. She finished up paying £5 12 and 6 for her bicycle with the trade in and all.
St Bridget is Ireland's most famous female saint, and she is still celebrated by the crafting of St Bridget's crosses today. St Bridget's Well is the venue for a workshop of the making of St Bridget's crosses by Michael Ryan.
Irish Catholics have a special affection for Bridget, placing her second only to St Patrick. Although the Church has decanonized her, Bridget's cultus continues. Her legends reflect a generous, kindly personality, but historical facts are hard to find. She was born, it is believed, near Kildare, and St Patrick baptized her. A very young Bridget took vows as a nun. In the convent she was a milkmaid, hence the legends of Bridget giving butter to the poor, or of cows giving her milk 3 times a day to cope with the thirst of visiting bishops. Bridget founded the monastery of Kildare and helped spread Christianity through Ireland and beyond her shores.
Just get it going first. You just put one like this around the main stem, okay? I'll show you now first, and we'll have everything 100% right. And you take off like so, and then when we get one rounded twice, it all stays in position. Okay. And then you'll be able to hold it in position with your finger and thumb. We take this one across here now. And then after that, it's as simple as falling asleep. It all stays together.
Okay.
Okay. So what you do then is you just keep going round one after the other.
Okay.
And it all stays together. Okay?
Okay.
This little finger like so.
That much patience.
Well, I had a good teacher, Mary Ann Higgins. Mrs. Ryan, my late mother, taught me how to do this, so it's very nice to be able to remember how you were taught.
This is very important.
And think about
Behind that wall.
actually just outside that wall there. Right, father and mother, God rest them. Put it on like so. It depends on how big you want it, then you can leave it in that position, or you can keep going and you can have a big cross, you can have a small cross. Well, I tell you one thing, it's good. Don't worry. There's nothing wrong with it.
That's good to hear.
The finished product.
In the years gone by, before machinery came, all the fodder was prepared by hand. First you'd get a side, what was known as a side. It was a wooden, and there was a blade on the end of it. And you'd go off putting, and it was no bother to a good sized man to mow an acre on the day.